Welcome to the Living Word Podcast. I am your host, Geneviève, and these episodes serve as a reminder to how essential your fullest expression is on this planet during one of the most transformative times in our history. Together, we are going to explore truth through vulnerable conversations about life's deeper meaning, exploring holistic wellness, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, love, and everything in between. Let's dive in, shall we? Welcome back to the Living Word. I feel so grateful to be here with you today, Dasha, and to be able to take everyone on a journey that I wasn't expecting. I believe we've been magnetized together, and we have relationships in our life where when looking back, you can see the pieces that connected us to the now. And from the moment I met you at an event, for the first time I met you in person with your son, I could just feel this beautiful warmth, this energy from you that was so peaceful and inviting. Thank you. And when we've gone to a few events together, and we came to your house a couple of weeks ago, and we partook in something called conscious intimacy games. And we're really going to dive into that today, because this is a world that I believe will invite a lot of people in to think about how they're connecting with people, to really take a wider look at their communication and how we can evolve as a collective going into different ways of being together. But before we get into that, you're a conscious intimacy facilitator and coach, and you are also very passionate about peaceful parenting. And I have seen the way you bring people together, the way you create experiences. I can tell that you just love people. And so I would love to just start first, like, who are you in this now moment? And what does intimacy even mean to you? Because we hear intimacy and sometimes we get these stories in our mind that kind of put up some walls. And I would love for us to bring those down a little bit getting into this topic today.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited for what's to come between us. And like you said, I feel like we were just magnetized together. And now we get to speak on a bigger platform about what's true for us. As far as what intimacy means to me, so the way that Conscious Intimacy Games was created, conscious means to be awake and or aware. And intimacy, in the Latin term, means to know the innermost character of yourself and of others. So, wow, what awareness are we bringing to the innermost character of ourselves? That's first and foremost with Conscious Intimacy Games. And even though in society we tell ourselves intimacy is between another, it's really first with yourself. And then once we're actually awake and aware within ourselves, we can be awake and aware with others and truly see them. I think something that comes up for me recently is this concept of feeling seen. And I tell myself that's what we're trying to curate at Conscious Intimacy Games, is showing up in a room full of people you don't know, different backgrounds, different colors, different religions, different languages sometimes, and feeling seen. By the end of the evening, if I was to ask every single participant, I tell myself they would say that they felt seen in one moment or another.
Well, I can validate that. And what an amazing description, because I know even for myself, when I hear intimacy, my mind first goes to sexuality. Like that's where it went immediately. And then as I started unwinding that story by communicating about this with you, I realized that there was so much more that we were missing out on by having these walls up around intimacy. And when I came to the Conscious Intimacy Games with Hayden, that night I slept better than I have slept in a very long time. I realized that my nervous system had been so balanced and I had found so much peace. And now hearing you, I go, wow, imagine what we would all be like if we felt more seen and connected, because that's how I felt that night. So what guided you into this place of facilitating, into being interested in this level of experience? Because I know that you were craving more connection with people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a little bit about the story, kind of plot twist. I had met my previous partner, and he introduced me to more of like the spirituality and intimacy shamanic work. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure where I sit with this, but I was curious enough to find out. So I went to a couple of trainings with him and without him. And one of them was ISTA. And then I was coming off the heels of coming back to Playa from ISTA. And I was it was like this peak experience. Like, wow, I feel so seen. There's so much intimacy and love. And then now I want to reintegrate, but still kind of have that support system. And so then I overheard about conscious intimacy games, an ad on WhatsApp groups. And it was in Tulum. I was living in Playa. And I was like, you know what? I'll make the drive, see what this is all about.
And you don't like driving, so that was a big hit.
And I hate driving. Oh my gosh. It was really like a commitment, like an hour of being in the car. I tried to find someone to go with me, and like it wasn't working for the time, or like they were like, well, I don't know if I want to make that commitment. So I just went by myself. And once I showed up, it was like this small apartment, and there was like 30 people in there, and I'm like, what are we doing? And then I experienced it, and that was kind of how do they say it? And that was it. Like, it's just kind of started from there. I went to every single games after that. Ricky, the founder, ended up moving to Playa, so it was even closer proximity. And then I just kind of, every single time I went deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I started going to the facilitator trainings and realizing, like, this is the work. This is the passion. This is the dharma. And then it was history.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you find the deeper you go into this world of conscious intimacy games, like how has it affected all of the relationships in your life, especially the relationship with yourself?
The magic. I think the magic of intentionality and manifestation is what's really coming through for me now, because I've been doing the intimacy work for a few years. Now I just see it as a way of life. So for me, there are no lines really. It's just kind of like, this is how I operate in my day-to-day life. And then when I go into the container, there's probably more boundaries still in the games than there are in my regular life. But I see it as just a continuation. And it definitely has a lot to do with how I parent. I think that also really resonated with me too, is the type of intimacy I have with my son and how I'm parenting from a place of peace instead of a place of authoritarian figure. Like, I'm here to tell you what to do and I know the way. He teaches me as much, if not more, than I could ever teach him. It taught me so much about relationships and what type of relationships I do and don't want to be in. And that can sometimes be a brutal path.
It is, right?
You know, where you're just like, okay, I'm going to be releasing that. That's no longer serving me. It's like, whew. I heard someone say recently, that spiritual path can be quite lonely at times. Mm-hmm. And I've been feeling into that as well recently. Whew. Yeah.
I feel that too.
It's a doozy.
It's this amazing container where we are so committed to the path and the growth. And when I see you, the thing that stands out is like excellence. Mm-hmm. Like, I see you as a woman of excellence, not perfection, but you really, what you do it with firm intention and beauty, like this divine feminine in you. And when that happens, and we continue this, to me at least, we continue elevating, we continue like raising our standards for ourselves and the frequency that we operate at. And that moment, those in-between moments where you're in between, it's almost like you're in between levels. That to me is when it feels a little lonely, because you're like, okay, is it like, what's going on here? And it's okay when we release because more comes in, but it's the in-between, right?
It's making that space.
Totally.
Making that space. Yeah, I love that you said that, because when you release, you create that space for something else to come in. And sometimes that's really painful because there's that trust component. Now I'm going to trust that something is coming. So I've been kind of churning into that in the past 2 months, I would say. Something else that you said as far as excellence, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel very seen. That is definitely my goal. I told my son, I'm raising you to be exceptional. And then I went on as to in that particular situation. And he said, well, maybe I just want to be like everyone else. And I was like, yeah, I respect that. I do. And maybe you will be, or maybe you won't be. But I'm here to guide you to be exceptional, and you get to choose.
Wow. That's one of the things that I learned from you, being at your home with him. Like, the level at which your son communicates and with people is really amazing. Like, it is exceptional. And it's not like there's these weird boundaries of like adults and kids. It's like everyone is in communion together. Even the way your partner speaks with him, like it's beautiful. And that's something I've been learning from you, and I love witnessing, is the way that you ask for what you need and the way that you communicate openly. Have you always been like that? Is that something that's getting clearer on the path? And because I feel like for myself, that's been a really difficult part of the work, is feeling safe to fully express my needs without needing to have all these fluff words around it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely not always the case. And I still work on that daily. And so we like to call it in the games, it's, can I make a request?
A request.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's expressing your desires in a way where it's going to let intimacy flow. So even if you're saying no to a request, you're still finding a way to make intimacy flow. So can I express a request, or can I express a desire? The other person's, if they're available for that, maybe they just got home and it's frantic and they're just like, they can't take one more question. They're going to say no, so you don't continue. Now, if they say yes, you've already received a yes. And then you express the desire. I'd like to hug you. And then you actually ask the question. So now this person's prepared. They know what it is that you're looking to do or you want from them. And then they're able to give a yes or a no. And we also teach how to say no with continuing to have the intimacy flow.
That's an interesting concept, because we've been taught for some reason that, or not taught, we've learned over time that no can carry a lot of shame and guilt. And it's one of the things that we feel that we need to justify the no. And, or what I've also noticed within my own self is that sometimes I say yes with a lot of conditions. And it makes me think, like, was it an actual yes, or was this a no and I'm trying to appease?
People pleasing.
Totally. Yes. I'm a recovering people pleaser, like mega. And I noticed it with you. We were in a group chat. And one of the things I feel that you were so brave to do is bring your son here. And you've really been intentionally looking for the life that you're creating. And you know, even the homes, the neighborhoods, your travel, the way you do things, I've witnessed that you're always building on your experience. And we were in a group chat, and you were putting together like a Thanksgiving dinner or something. And then you responded like, I forget exactly the words, but it was so elegant. And you were like, this is not something I have capacity to host anymore. And so I'm just going to close this down and ask if someone wants to partner with me to host the next one. I would love to do that. And I was just like, wow, like giving people permission to change their mind.
Yeah, that was a whole practice that I specifically recall that, and having many conversations with my partner about like, this is how I'm feeling, and it's edgy. Like, it's edgy. One of my kind of vows is to keep my word. And that also involves keeping my word to myself, first and foremost. So it wasn't in alignment. It wasn't something that was bringing me joy. And typically hosting and planning a party brings me significant joy. Like, regardless of who comes, regardless of the circumstances, it's just that concept. I enjoy hosting. And this one, it just wasn't inspired. Right. And so I had to be honest with myself, which in turn meant being honest with everyone else. Something that I learned at ISTA is when you receive a no, it's thank you for taking care of yourself.
That is a big takeaway.
Because guess what? When you finally receive a yes, it's going to feel so good because you know they're so grounded and honest in their no. That means they're extra yes.
I love that, Dasha, so much. You know, one of the pillars of our business that we're in, like we're in a relationship building business, and we are always looking for new partners. And one of the things that we've really taught ourselves is to be totally fluid with the no's, because when someone is like, if they're not all in, it's a waste of everyone's time.
Exactly.
Yet when it comes to taking that same concept into our personal and or intimate life, there's always been a little bit of like, I love the word edgy that you used, a little edge to it. But what you just shared kind of takes that pressure off. Like, I really love that. And you also, one of the things I've noticed is like to go with the yeses and the nos and creating the boundaries is you are craving having more intimacy with your friends, you know, like even the way you hung out, like we've talked about, like, we're just not in a season of like drinking alcohol right now. And we wanted to find new ways to like come together. Yes. What are some of the ways that, because I feel you're an innovator. I feel like you are pioneering a new way. Like I feel so safe and excited when you invite me to things because I'm like, oh my gosh, we have such aligned values. Like I get to play and be safe and feminine and speak my truth. Yes. And that's something that I really, really, really value. What are is there other ways in your life that you've created these new ways of being that really align with being more intimate with other people and yourself?
That's a great question. I haven't really thought about it in that way. I think the hosting aspect of it, I think I take that relatively serious in the sense of like, it's not just like throwing darts at the wall. It's like we're having a theme. We're having an organization of like feasting. Like I think breaking bread is like, that's a bonding moment, you know? And I always want to be respectful of how people consume food. So if there's vegetarians coming or I myself am gluten-free, so I'm always understanding of like, what are you intolerant of? So having that respect set up and then also having time boundaries. Like, I think people appreciate that so much.
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. And that's both for opening and closing.
And what is that? Can we go deeper into that for people? Maybe that like, that's a new concept. What is a time boundary?
Yeah. So essentially, typically if it's like a kid's birthday party or something with mixed age, I'll typically give an understanding of, okay, this is when the party starts. Please arrive around this time. And at this point, we will be deeply engaged. So you need to be here by then. So that could be a 30-minute window. Like if it starts at 5, by 5:30, the entertainment is going to begin. So people have that window of like, okay, I know that if I come after 5:30, I'm going to be missing out, essentially.
Right.
And then an end time so that there's no, is this going to end at 8? Like when, and then we'll be closing at 8. And then I make sure that they pick up their children or, you know, we start wrapping up. So it's just like knowing when and what to expect.
Well, and I witnessed 2 of these, and I'll give these examples because I really am someone, you know, the living word is all about bringing our words to life. And I really feel that the stories that we share, like when they're embodied into the truth of who we are, it brings a different potency. And so 2 of the examples I'll give of what you just spoke of is, number 1, we were doing a liver detox. Hayden and I were doing a liver detox, and we really wanted to connect with you because it's a busy season for all of us. Yeah. And so you invited us over, and I said, listen, I would love to do Thanksgiving with you, yet we have a very strict like eating menu right now. And you just like openly took our like 6 things we could actually eat and honored it. And we had an amazing evening.
Yeah, it was delicious.
It was delicious. And that meant so much because it was like, no, we want to be together regardless. So number 1, it's like how beautiful that we can, if I would have usually said no, I would have been like, no, we're not available. But because of the safety I feel with you, I was just very open about where we were at. So thank you. And I think that's really great for people to hear. Like we can be, my brother always says we're wicked and weird, you know, like we're always like, yeah, let's own our weirdness. And even though that's not necessarily weird, but it's different. And then the second thing is when we were at the Conscious Intimacy Games, I love that when you closed it, you said, I'm going to keep this space open for everyone to little jase. And my boundary is a hard stop at this time. 10 minutes before that, you reminded everyone of the hard stop. Now, coming from a people pleaser, I do give time boundaries. And that was the first time that I had received it in a group setting like that. And I wanted to say that it made me realize how often do we create stories in our head of what could happen, which actually takes us away from being present, instead of putting our boundaries just fully out there to be fully present. Because I'm assuming you hosting, knowing there's a time boundary and knowing that everyone knows that, you're not thinking about what could happen. Like, what an amazing way to bring more intimacy into life.
I think throughout the games, you felt the boundaries. Like, I tell myself from the first time I attended, I felt the boundaries. And that's actually a very masculine, I tell myself, component of the games. And so then I don't ever worry about what's going to happen. Are people going to leave? Are they going to find their taxi in time? Because I just know, like, it's just reverence for the container. And it's so far served me every time.
I love this conversation. I feel like this is something that we'll dive even deeper to in other ways, but I really want to kind of touch on the parenting. I'm not a parent yet I see the way that you said earlier before we started recording, like, I'm obsessed with peaceful parenting.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. Whew. It's, everyone I feel like has a little bit of a different definition. So what first came into my mind is what it's not. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably where I'll start. So what is not peaceful parenting? So it's not authoritarian parenting. I'm not super sure how you grew up or what kinds of relationships you witnessed with other children as you were growing up, but that's what I witnessed is authoritarian parenting. So there's some sort of set of rules, and if you don't follow those rules, there are punishments. Mm-hmm. To be frank, as I recall my childhood, what I recall most is the punishments were based off of the waves of my mother. I was raised by a single mother most of the time, of the waves of her emotions.
I can relate.
So the punishments weren't necessarily correlating with the deed. They were correlating with where she was at in her nervous system. So peaceful parenting is just that. We're parenting from a place of peace as opposed to where my current nervous system is at. So sometimes that means I'm not parenting. I'm actively taking time away. And that's the peaceful thing to do. Like, if I'm really upset or if I'm burnt out and I need a break, I'm getting a nanny. I'm taking a night away in a hotel. I'm telling my son I need to take 5 minutes to go to my room. I'm just going to the bathroom and doing an emotional release really quick. That's the presence that peaceful parenting brings. There's a lot more as opposed to punishments. We call them natural consequences. So just a really rudimentary example would be, it's really cold outside, or it's, there's potentially rocky terrain. My son doesn't want to wear his coat or doesn't want to wear shoes. Okay, depending on where my nervous system's at, that could be like, okay, no problem, buddy. Or it could be like, we need to get going. You need to get your coat on. Natural consequences is, if you don't wear your coat, you might get cold. And then he gets to decide. And if he doesn't wear the coat once and he gets cold, the next time he's going to wear his coat. But that's really painful for me. Like, I know my child's suffering. He's cold.
Right.
I mean, the other day, yet again, I reminded him that shoes are a good idea because there could be glass. And
we're in Mexico, so it's a little different, right?
It's a little,
the shoes are optional here.
It's a little Tarzan, situation. And he got a cut on his foot and he was crying. And then I consoled him and we hugged. And then once he was done, he was like, maybe I should put on some shoes. It was like that, and sometimes it takes a while. Like, you're like, okay, when's it going to come? And then again, it comes back to the trust.
Right.
It's like everything I've been instilling into him now at this age, like I think I saw it around age 7, the separation. Because before it was just him and I, it was like this. And now he has capacity to kind of move away, do his own thing, make his own decisions. And then when he needs to, he comes back. But he knows where home is, and he knows that now it's more free to release.
Wow.
So as we get older, right, as he grows, he's going to have more capacity. But as long as he still knows where he can come back, I've done my job.
It resonates so much, and I love your approach and the way you even verbalize things, because I was really afraid of having kids at one point. You know, I had all the cysts in my womb, and I really rejected the thought of mothering. I rejected it. And being here in Playa, it has really opened my mind to a different way, because the authoritarian parenting you talked about, that was my experience too, single father. And I understand, you know, I completely understand. And it's not the way I choose to move forward. And when I hear examples and see examples like from you and some other friends, I'm like, wow, this is actually going to be a really fun experience. And so thank you for paving the way. And I feel, again, like even the peaceful parenting comes back to intimacy.
Yes.
It really, because I see how your son, how old is he again?
8.
He is so like mama's boy, but not in like a needy, whiny way. He just loves you. And he like the way he even asks you questions, I'm just blown away by that. And it comes back to intimacy. And so what I really am taking away from this conversation today is that when we can start to bring play into creating boundaries, when we can start to really speak our truth in a way that is authentic, understanding that sometimes things may fall away or come in, it really brings this like potency to our lives that is undescribable. Is there anything that you would add to that, like about feeling safe to just fully be authentic?
I think, it comes back to integrity and honesty and vulnerability and being a leader in that. And if you don't consider yourself a leader, guess what? You are leading in your relationships. So if you lead with vulnerability, honesty, and authenticity, then you're bound to receive it in return.
And I learned that at the Conscious Intimacy Games. When we came, Hayden and I really didn't know what to expect. And we made the decision to play just the two of us that time, because we really wanted to go deep. And I will say, the way that the talk game specifically, the way that it was structured for us to really intentionally hear each other was something we've actually taken back into our everyday lives and implemented. And I'll say that moment was a really pivotal moment. We had a lot going on, and we were really working on how can we become even more intimate in our communication. And the Conscious Intimacy Games brought a new level of awareness. And I'm excited to dive more into it. And I really believe that for people, if you're listening and you resonate with what Dasha's been talking about the same way I am, I feel like I could just talk to you all day long. And if you feel that way, like you host these games in person and also online, correct?
Exactly.
People can come, and I feel like this is a fundamental skill that when people start to learn this level of intimacy and safety, we will really create a better world. And that's what I see, that what you're doing as a conscious intimacy facilitator and coach, like I really see the bigger picture of what you're doing on this planet. And I am here for all of it because it is life-changing.
It really is. Thank you so much for those beautiful words. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're actually changing the world. Mm-hmm. And I tell myself that actually there's not a large amount of us that need to change for the entirety of the world to change. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it. It just beams out. So when you change yourself, it's automatically going to change the other relationships in your life.
I couldn't agree more. And I will make sure that all of the ways for people to contact you are in the show notes. I just know that we're going to create so many beautiful things. And Conscious Intimacy Games, if you are someone who you're like, I don't know how to say no, I want more deeper connection with my friends, my family, my partner. If you're curious on what it looks like to feel safe, to fully be expressed in your vulnerability, please contact Dasha. please check out the Intimacy Games. And I do believe that it will really blow your mind of what's possible. And I'm so grateful for you, everything you offer to everyone who comes into your life. And I am forever grateful that we get to build this new level of friendship together.
As am I. Thank you so much for having me on. And I just can't wait to keep moving, keep growing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Living Word podcast today. My hope is that you have something new or a remembrance that you can apply in your life right now. Isn't that the whole point of us learning and growing? To take new understandings and alchemize them through our own human experience? Please like and leave a comment or review if you enjoyed this episode, and share it with people in your life who would benefit from hearing it also. Make sure you subscribe to the Living Word podcast on your favorite platform and be the first to know about upcoming episodes. Sending so much love and gratitude to be on this journey together. See you soon.